What up everyone, welcome back to YouStation 2. Today we're going to be talking about personal statement do's and don'ts. So to start off, you first got to understand that these admissions committee members that are going over personal statements are reading hundreds of them over the course of an application cycle. So they can all start to sound the same. But just like any good movie starts off, you want to start off your personal essay with a bang. Start off with something descriptive that either catches attention or provokes thought. I'll tell you what mine was. Not to say you need to do something exactly like this, but this is just an example. So my first sentence was, I had always loved grape juice. I did this because I knew the admissions committee member reading my essay would have never read that before as a first sentence. And at the very least, I wanted them to think in their minds, where are they going with this? I continue with, my grandpa and I used to make it from the grapes grown in his garden. When it came out of the boiler spigot, it was such a dark purple that it was almost black, and the smell was as potent as the color. I really wanted to engage the senses with this part here. Then I tied it to something medical. Then there it was in front of me, mixed with some kind of barium cocktail as I sat in the waiting room before my CT scan. So that's the gist of beginnings. It should be thought-provoking, it should be attention-grabbing, and it should be unique, something special to you that you can start out telling your story about yourself, because that's what a personal statement is. It's really telling your life story and why you decided to apply to medical school, why you really want to be a doctor. The next thing you want to do is show empathy. Medical schools don't want to train the next generation of doctors to be jerks. Many medical schools are looking for substantive people over people with really good MCAT scores and GPAs. But let's face it, most schools want both. As I mentioned in a previous video, this is a perfect time to share heartfelt experiences. A lot of these are going to come from volunteering, maybe some from other activities. As you convey what happened, try and include descriptive details that will paint a picture in your reader's mind, and then transition into why this experience made you want to become a doctor. In terms of what not to do, don't lecture. You never want to come off like a know-it-all. You want to convey humility in the tone of your essay. Being humble means that you're willing to learn. So at the end of an experience that you share, say what you learned from it, and then you can tie it back to how it made you reinforce your decision to become a doctor. The next thing you don't want to talk about is money. Unless you experienced a personal financial hardship as a kid, it's a general rule of thumb not to talk about money. I read this mutual friend's personal statement one time, and he was talking about the lavish lifestyle that he wanted to have in the future and how being a doctor would afford that. So the MDs and the PhDs sitting on the admissions committee don't want to talk about money. First of all, doctors are under a microscope. People are looking to constantly decrease the amount of money doctors make. And second, per hour, they really don't make that much money. It might seem like that on a yearly basis, but per hour, the average doctor doesn't make that much because he's working 60, 70 hours a week. And it's also a good idea not to talk about money in your interviews. The next thing you don't want to talk about is bad GPA and bad MCAT. Now this is a matter of debate, and we're going to talk about both sides of the issue here. So at least one MD school that I know of, they don't allow the people who read the personal statements to have access to the MCAT and the GPA. So if you bring that up in your personal statement, they'll see it and they'll know you didn't do that well. So that's one thing to consider. But then also at schools where the people on the admissions committee reading your personal statement do have access to your MCAT and GPA, it might not be bringing up because it could change their perspective as they're reading through your paper. Yeah, you know what, this guy's or this applicant's stats really aren't that good. So here's the counter argument for that point. Let's say you have a perfectly legitimate reason for doing poorly during a portion of your schooling. Explaining why you did poorly then could really help. I kind of did this in mine. I say something to the effect of, after some hard-learned lessons about the level of dedication required for academic success, I began to enjoy learning. So this made reference to my upward trend in my GPA. For me, I thought it was a nice way of saying, even though I started off with B's and C's, I eventually just got A's. And even if you don't share your bad GPA or MCAT score in your personal statement, be prepared to answer questions about it in secondaries or most likely in your interviews. I was asked about my upward trend in my interviews, why I started off so poorly, and I had to explain that. So that's definitely something worth preparing for and getting ready to answer. Keep in mind that throughout your personal statement, you want to have a positive tone. You don't want to sound naive, but you definitely don't want to sound jaded. Having a good tone will really set the mood of the reader for your personal statement. Here's an excerpt from my personal statement. For my employment at the Plasma Center, I learned that even in the healthcare field, there are good and bad parts of any job, but having real expectations with a positive outlook helps. So I hope those tips were helpful. The personal statement is a good opportunity for you to stand out from the pack, especially if you feel like you're weak in some area. But whatever the case, be confident because you've gotten to this point in your application cycle. So congratulations and go get them.